than the study of literature or the appreciation of art. Victoria was a woman not only of vast property, but of innumerable possessions. She had inherited an immense quantity of furniture, of ornaments, of china, of plate, of valuable objects of every kind. Her purchases throughout a long life made a formidable addition to these stores, and there flowed in upon her besides, from every quarter of the globe, a constant stream of gifts. Over this enormous mass she exercised an unceasing and minute supervision, and the arrangement and the contemplation of it in all its details filled her with an intimate satisfaction. The collecting instinct has its roots in the very depths of human nature, and, in the case of Victoria, it seemed to owe its force to two of her dominating impulses: the intense sense which had always been hers of her own personality, and the craving which, growing with the years, had become in her old age almost an obsession, for fixity, for solidity, for the setting up of palpable barriers against the outrages of change and time. When she considered the multitudinous objects which belonged to her, or, better still, when, choosing out some section of them as the fancy took her, she actually savoured the vivid richness of their individual qualities, she saw herself deliciously reflected from a million facets, felt herself magnified miraculously over a boundless area, and was well pleased. That was just as it should be. But then came the dismaying thought: everything slips away, crumbles, vanishes. Sevres dinner services get broken. Even golden basins go unaccountably astray. Even one's self, with all the recollections and experiences that make up one's being, fluctuates, perishes, dissolves. But no, it could not, should not be so. There should be no changes and no losses. Nothing should ever move, neither the past nor the present, and she herself least of all. And so the tenacious woman, hoarding her valuables, decreed their immortality with all the resolution of her soul. She would not lose one memory or one pin. She gave orders that nothing should be thrown away, and nothing was. There, in drawer after drawer, in wardrobe after wardrobe, reposed the dresses of 70 years. But not only the dresses. The furs and the mantles and subsidiary frills, and the muffs and the parasols and the bonnets, all were ranged in chronological order, dated and complete. A great cupboard was devoted to the dolls. In the china room at Windsor a special table held the mugs of her childhood, and her children's mugs as well. Mementos of the past surrounded her in serried accumulations. In every room the tables were powdered thick with the photographs of relatives. Their portraits, revealing them at all ages, covered the walls. Their figures in solid marble rose up from pedestals or gleamed from brackets in the form of gold and silver statuettes. The dead in every shape, in miniatures, in porcelain, in enormous life-size oil paintings, were perpetually about her. John Brown stood upon her writing table in solid gold. Her favourite horses and dogs, endowed with a new durability, crowded round her footsteps. Sharp, in silver gilt, dominated the dinner table. Boy and Boz lay together among unfading flowers in bronze. And it was not enough that each particle of the past should be given the stability of metal or of marble. The whole collection in its arrangement, no less than its entity, should be immutably fixed. There might be additions, but there might never be alterations. No chintz might change, no carpet, no curtain be replaced by another, or, if long use at last made it necessary, the stuffs and patterns must be so identically reproduced that the keenest eye might not detect the difference. No new picture could be hung upon the walls at Windsor, for those already there had been put in their places by Albert, whose decisions were eternal. So, indeed, were Victoria's. To ensure that they should be, the aid of the camera was called in. Every single article in the Queen's possession was photographed from several points of view. These photographs were submitted to Her Majesty, and when, after careful inspection, she had approved of them, they were placed in a series of albums richly bound. Then, opposite each photograph, an entry was made indicating the number of the article, the number of the room in which it was kept, its exact position in the room, and all its principal characteristics. The fate of every object which had undergone this process was henceforth irrevocably sealed. The whole multitude, once and for all, took up its steadfast station; and Victoria, with a gigantic volume or two of the endless catalogue always beside her to look through, to ponder upon, to expatiate over, could feel with a double contentment that the transitoriness of the world had been arrested by the amplitude of her might. Thus the collection, ever multiplying, ever encroaching upon new fields of consciousness, ever rooting itself more firmly in the depths of instinct, became one of the dominating influences of that strange existence. It was a collection not merely of things and of thoughts, but of states of mind and ways of living as well. The celebration of anniversaries grew to be an important branch of it, of birthdays and marriage days and death days, each of which demanded its appropriate feeling, which, in its turn, must be itself expressed in an appropriate outward form. And the form, of course, the ceremony of rejoicing or lamentation, was stereotyped with the rest; it was part of the collection. On a certain day, for instance, flowers must be strewn on John Brown's monument at Balmoral, and the date of the yearly departure for Scotland was fixed by that fact. Inevitably it was around the central circumstance of death, the final witness to human mutability, that these commemorative cravings clustered most thickly. Might not even death itself be humbled if one could recall enough, if one asserted with a sufficiently passionate and reiterated emphasis the eternity of love? Accordingly, every bed in which Victoria slept had attached to it at the back, on the right-hand side above the pillow, a photograph of the head and shoulders of Albert as he lay dead, surmounted by a wreath of immortelle. At Balmoral, where memories came crowding so closely, the solid signs of memory appeared in surprising profusion. Obelisks, pyramids, tombs, statues, cairns, and seats of inscribed granite proclaimed Victoria's dedication to the dead. There, twice a year, on the days that followed her arrival, a solemn pilgrimage of inspection and meditation was performed. There, on August 26th, Albert's birthday, at the foot of the bronze statue of him in Highland dress, the Queen, her family, her court, her servants, and her tenantry met together, and in silence drank to the memory of the dead. In England the tokens of remembrance pullulated hardly less. Not a day passed without some addition to the multifold assemblage: a gold statuette of Ross the Piper, a life-sized marble group of Victoria and Albert in medieval costume, inscribed upon the base with the words, "Allured to brighter worlds and led the way"; a granite slab in the shrubbery at Osborne, informing the visitor of Waldmann, the very favourite little dachshund of Queen Victoria, who brought him from Baden, April 1872, died July 11th, 1881. At Frogmore, the great mausoleum, perpetually enriched, was visited almost daily by the Queen when the court was at Windsor. But there was another, a more secret and hardly less holy shrine. The suite of rooms which Albert had occupied in the castle was kept for ever shut away from the eyes of any save the most privileged. Within those precincts everything remained as it had been at the Prince's death, but the mysterious preoccupation of Victoria had commanded that her husband's clothing should be laid afresh each evening upon the bed, and that each evening the water should be set ready in the basin as if he were still alive, and this incredible rite was performed with scrupulous regularity for nearly 40 years. Such was the inner worship, and still the flesh obeyed the spirit, still the daily hours of labour proclaimed Victoria's consecration to duty and to the ideal of the dead. Yet with the years the sense of self-sacrifice faded, the natural energies of that ardent being discharged themselves with satisfaction into the channel of public work. The love of business which, from her